From the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, this is Nebraska Farmcast, and I'm Ryan Evans. Bringing children into the operation is the goal for many farms and ranches, but it can require some creative approaches so that everyone involved can earn a living. Jessica Groskopf, an extension educator and agricultural economist with the Center for Ag Profitability, is writing a series of articles for our website at cap.unl.edu detailing ideas to help this transition process. She joins me now on the phone to discuss her first article in the series, which covers monetary compensation for family members. Hey, Jessica, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
So you're starting this series of articles by offering ideas about paying family members who are coming back to the farm. Why did you start with this topic, and how useful can this approach be in your mind?
Yeah, so we get asked a lot here at the Center for Ag Profitability about how to bring family members back into the operation. And I think what's really important about that is that everybody, both owners and heirs, need to maintain a viable standard of living. And for a lot of people, I think they kind of just skip over maybe more into that inheritance side of that topic rather than taking a step back and talking about what does it really cost for us to have a standard of life that works not only for owners but also for heirs. So this is a really interesting topic, and I think the number one thing is, are you providing them with monetary compensation either in the form of a wage or in the form of a salary or even just a family living withdrawal from the business?
And interestingly, you mentioned the possibility of starting that monetary compensation early in life for children in the farmer ranch family. So could you just talk more about the possible benefits of this approach, particularly when it comes to responsibility and financial literacy for young family members?
Sure. So a lot of times when we talk about paying children, especially those who are under the age of 18, usually we're doing that potentially for some tax purposes. So there's some tax benefits. You can work with a financial advisor to explore tax advantage ways to help your children get ahead. That includes Roth IRAs and 529 accounts that we can set up for children under the age of 18. I think even more importantly, especially if we're talking about children maybe a little bit older than 18, is providing them that sense of responsibility and allowing them to manage money at an earlier age. So again, we can jumpstart their savings, whether that's for education or retirement or business assets, and we can start to begin to provide them with some financial freedom. This is really important when we think about farms and ranches, and a huge key to success is allowing that next generation to learn how to manage money, not only from a personal side, but also from a business side.
And are there some common pitfalls or overlooked aspects that you would encourage farm and ranch families to be aware of, especially when it comes to tax deductible wages when they're employing family members?
So first of all, you need to get your team together if you're talking about this strategy, either from a tax perspective or from a transition planning perspective. And that would probably include an attorney and a tax accountant. It might also include a financial advisor. So wages or salaries paid to family members can be tax deductible, but they might not. So you need to work with that team to determine how you would like to set up that monetary compensation. Now, if you are monetarily compensating family members, you need to make sure that you have the additional paperwork done. And again, that's going to require, especially an accountant, to make sure that you have the correct documentation and reporting, especially if you're paying children under the age of 18.
And what's important in your mind to remember about the relationship to the family in business here and their personal development of family members who are earning a competitive compensation package?
So I think what's interesting here is most farms and ranches are family businesses. And a lot of times we talk about families, especially when we're talking about estate planning. We also need to talk about that business side. And as we set up bringing someone back into the operation, we need to think about what a competitive package looks like for them And that might not just be a salary or a wage. It could be other non-monetary compensation that's included. I mean, often folks coming back to the operation will have housing or vehicles that are provided to them in addition to potentially a salary or a wage. So as we look at that, I think it's really important that we value the non-monetary compensation properly, and then we also consider what is a livable standard of living for them. So what's a viable standard of living for them? So getting that all together, I think, is really, really interesting, and it takes a lot of work to think about what is a reasonable compensation package for a family member. And that goes for owners and again, as well as heirs. So we can't undercut that owner generation to bring in that younger generation into the business. So it works both ways, and it's really, really important to understand how everyone who's working in the business is compensated by the business.
And as that younger generation comes back, can you talk about the importance of just setting clear expectations for work and compensation, and then how position descriptions might play a role in that?
So one of the biggest challenges is setting those expectations for work. Different generations have different viewpoints on what is the expectation, right? You know, dad might show up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and work until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, where that younger generation might not show up until 8 and leaves at 3:30 or 4 to go pick up their kids from school. And so just thinking about what are the expectations and how are we living up to those expectations, because that's where the rub happens within farm and ranch families. So a lot of farm, estate, and transition planning coaches really emphasize the potential for writing position descriptions to clearly define these expectations, including working hours and responsibilities. This can also help you determine what a reasonable compensation may be based on the skill level of that person coming back into the operation. So if, you know, they're ranch hand number 1, what does that mean? Or if they are a highly skilled mechanic, what does that mean? And those two job descriptions potentially are going to have different skill levels and different compensation. And so just setting that expectation early helps them understand, here's what's happening. The other thing it can do is help them understand how they can be promoted within the business. So again, if you come in as ranch hand number 1, what does it take to become ranch manager? Or what does it take to become a part owner? And so again, just setting those expectations, but then you also have to follow those expectations and those job descriptions if you put those in place. So I wouldn't take those lightly, and I would really work through that process of setting those expectations as a family.
Great. And then how does paying family help in the early stages of transition without transferring ownership right away?
Sure. So if we're providing some sort of monetary compensation to family members, that owner generation still maintains control of the entity and the assets. So when we're thinking about that really early stage of the transition process, that might be a way for you to test the waters to see if working together within the operation is feasible. So you have that opportunity to kind of say, okay, this is your compensation for coming home. If this doesn't work out, you have the ability to leave the operation, and the operation then is still intact as a whole. The other thing it does is it provides that family member with the opportunity to build their own cash reserves, either to start their own operation or to choose a new career path.
And last, when looking at the total compensation package, how should non-monetary benefits be valued and communicated just to ensure fairness and clarity within the family business structure?
So I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but again, not all of the compensation potentially will be monetary. So we just need to really make sure we are providing a fair market value for those non-monetary forms of compensation, and that those are included in the total compensation package, and everybody understands what the full compensation package is. And I believe that this compensation package should not only be discussed, it should also be in writing before somebody becomes involved in the operation.
Well, great info from Jessica Groskopf, an extension educator and agricultural economist with the Center for Agricultural Profitability. She is based at the Panhandle Research, Education, and Extension Center in Scottsbluff. And you can find her article linked in the description for the podcast on any app you're listening on, as well as on our Center for Ag Profitability's website at cap.unl.edu. Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks, Ryan.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.